Hi, I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor RIchmond, and I'm here with our senior editor Daniel Montgomery, and we're here today to speak with Tár cinematographer Florian Hoffmeister about his new film and what it was like to work on it. Welcome to you, Florian.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
It's our pleasure. And let's get right into it. Tell us about the process that led to your being hired to perform the cinematography on Tár.
Well, the phone rang. That's how it starts, doesn't it? It's an interesting question because when the phone rang and Todd was inquiring, I was very excited about that because I remember in the bedroom well, not only as a film, but also it left back in the day, it really left a big imprint on me because it kind of spoke to me also as a young filmmaker in what is possible in art of cinema, and it had this confidence that I remember apart from the film even. So when we talked about this, I was ready to photograph the New York City phone directory for him. It would not have really mattered. I was so I was ready to go. We spoke about it just in the past weeks, because when we actually started, we hit the gates running, and we never really had time to, or say I avoided the question. It's always, why me? And we didn't really have time to reflect on that. But recently he spoke about it, and he said that he had seen a show that I did called The Terror, which was a AMC anthology, and that was a show that took place all in the Arctic, but we shot it on a stage in Budapest. And he really, the lighting really appealed to him, and the naturalism that I was able to pull off in an completely artificial environment, and that was like the entry point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what were those initial conversations with Todd Field like, in terms of what he hoped you would bring to this photography? Like, what was your mission in creating the world of Lydia Tár?
Well, I think when this creative process is a peculiar one because it gets very intimate, and to the extent that ideally you kind of look at the same room and the four eyes go in the same corner and say, oh yes, or you would even finish each other's sentences after the prep. But it is sometimes something that just very slowly grows and happens, and particular in this case, because he had taken the leap and the jump onto the empty page, I felt my first position was to listen, because he's a true auteur. He has written, he's directed and produced the film. So it's not necessarily about sharing opinions about the script, for example, when you work with a director who has not written the script. So you could say, oh, I read it like this, or I thought I read it like this. He had, of course, put his vision onto the paper. So I felt it was more about, seeing how this vision that I had received would now find its projection in the real world. And I think when I looked at the script, what I thought was very striking was that it had a very intimate knowledge of the world of music. So of a world that was foreign to me, but it was very well researched, and it was a real intimate insight. And at the same time, there was a form of detachment, so to say. So you were reading it and you felt like, oh, there's actually something else going on. But it was very gradual that this something else kind of started crawling into your head. And in my world, in the visual world, this would mean complete authenticity of space. That's the intimacy of the observation, that you really feel. You could never feel, not for a single moment, that this wasn't real. This had to always, no, any hint that would have felt like a movie set would have destroyed the immersive nature of this. And the objectivity was a form of restraint. Where can we put the camera, and how can we move the camera without, putting a strong commentary onto things or trying to push the audience into a certain corner. And he had this beautiful catchphrase. He used to say, "Don't gild the lily." So, you know, practice yourself in holding back. I have this catchphrase, don't put a hat on a hat. So if something is there, don't try to, you know, put it there even more so. And so with those catchphrases, we went into prep and we started seeing locations, which is a very, very good thing to do because, you know, you can very easily see where somebody, you know, how he reacted to certain places. And then I do something that I guess lots of cinematographers do. I try to shoot tests very early. So I try to do that as early as I can. And most ideally, I do the first test by myself without the director being there. So you know, just having collected some of the knowledge and insight that he shared, I then did a broad lens and camera test where you get these cameras, all digital cameras and different lenses. And then I presented it to him. And that is actually a really good process to figure something out practically, where it's almost like I show him what I have translated into my world. And because he wasn't there when I shot it, it's like a fresh set of eyes that sees, oh, I see this in these images, you know. Ideally, I would have taken somebody, you know, a stand-in with a costume, and I went to places that resonated with the film. And in that very particular screening, Todd used another very beautiful line that he referred to some lenses, said, those are really beautiful, but they look like a movie with a big capital M. And that's not what we are going to do. So, you know, you kind of plotted those little moments where, again, it was something that resonated with me because I thought, oh, okay, naturalism, authenticity, objectivity, those are the keywords, and not romanticism, heightened look, and dramatization, you know. So that's a little bit, if that makes sense, you know, how we surfed along.
Absolutely. No, and along those same lines, Florian, you know, when the movie started, I was watching and I was just captivated that with the interview that Cate did with Adam Gopnik. And I was just like, oh my God, is this a documentary? Is this not a scripted film? Yeah. It really captivated me. And I thought maybe I had read the materials wrong. And it was just fascinating the way it seemed so much more observational than participatory. And that clearly was a photographic choice.
No, absolutely. That was what all we talked about all the time, you know. And I personally, I share the same feeling. I mean, I'd seen the film numerous times in post-production, and it is still, when I see it with an audience, I still find myself halfway through that Adam Gopnik scene. I go like, oh, I must have bought the tickets to. Am I actually in New York? Am I in the Yale Study Hall? Am I just watching this? Also, you know, what a beautiful choice to ask Adam Gopnik to come in and do it, and he did it so perfectly, you know.
Oh, but yeah, I thought this can't be an actor. He's too. I mean, he wasn't an actor, and I just thought this, you know, he has to be an actor, though. I mean, just looking at the way he did it, but it was just a real journalist.
Yeah, and there's an interesting thing that I also noticed. It's now just talking to some people in the past weeks. You know, of course, we have got the big scene in Juilliard, which we shot at a continuous running take, you know, the one where she teaches the young student. But sometimes people say, oh, I thought, because they had heard about some continuous shot before they'd seen the film. And some people say, oh, I thought the interview at the beginning was a continuous shot, which clearly it isn't. And no, because, you know, because it feels as if it's real time, you know, and we had discussions there about not moving the camera, you know, finding these angles that would be immersive, but also serving, you know, the place and the space to be, you know, perceivable as a real place. There's a particular shot that we found halfway through shooting on the second day. That it's a two-shot. It's over somebody's knee and it's flat against the walls. They just sit there. It's like every little, you know, rule that you normally have in your cinematography playbook, like go for depth, you know, you know, everything we ignored to basically get there. And there was a very, very rewarding process.
And you mentioned that scene at Juilliard, that one shot. How challenging was that to pull off? Was there like a lot of takes for that, or did you get it in like just one or two takes somehow?
Yeah, no, that was, it was yeah, it was full on. The process there was that basically we had thought about, it was a 10-page scene. It was beautifully written, but lots of words, obviously, and also lots of reactions and lots of dynamics, when she's with him at the piano, when she's on the stage, when she's referring to the other students, when the student exposes his knee, and his tension. So we had kind of talked about the scene theoretically, and we had, say, if we had shot it normally, you would have had something like 30 setups. So on the first location scout, where we were set in the location, I still remember that Todd said, well, actually, we need to shoot this in a single take, and I completely jumped at this idea because we would have spent, and we did spend the first, say, 10-15 minutes of the film literally in reverse angle situations of people seated at tables and speaking. So it was a real opportunity to unleash the camera and have it travel with her and to be with her in her world. And I think, we thought about, and Todd phrases this really perfectly. He always said, he wanted Cate to drive the editorial. So in a way, we are still going through those moments of all those different angles, but she is taking us to them and the camera follows her. Now, to achieve that technically, we went through a whole length. First, we thought about a crane, because the obvious choice would have been a Steadicam, but a Steadicam has a certain degree of predictability, I find. Very mature audiences go, okay, settle back. Here comes the one shot, you know what I mean? And we wanted to just keep people on their toes and not, surprise and keep tension. Thought about the crane couldn't go in there. Then I thought of building a rig above the ceiling with a kind of rope system. That would have been all a nightmare. In the end, we ended up kind of borrowing the technology that has been established in 1917. There's like people carrying these gimbals. So we had 4 grips that carried the camera, and they were passing it up and down the stage and walking with her, and it was on a remote controlled stabilized head that the operator then controlled. And to me, it was one of the really exciting moments of this film, because in a way, we had a full day rehearsal with her. First, we had a full day rehearsal just with the camera technology, just with the grips, learning to carry the thing. Then she came in, we did a full day with her, and then we started shooting. And the performance she delivers in this is just breathtaking. I mean, she sits down at the piano, and plays. Not only does she play, she also acts, and comments what she plays, And in the end, you have this tension, you have this amazing actress that delivers all these beautiful lines, but you also got 4 blokes on socks that carry the thing. I think that's filmmaking at its best in a way. And obviously I still remember the first shot, because it was like in the movies. It was absolutely perfect. I still get goosebumps, but in the very, very last 15 seconds, we had a technical fault. It was so perfect that everybody thought, we have made it. It was like Argentina, France. Oh yeah, we've got it. And bam, there comes the, it was crazy. And then it took us almost a full day to get to it again.
Oh, that had to be heartbreaking.
Yeah, but I also want to pay tribute to working with somebody like Todd and Cate and the way they collaborated, because that was what we had set out for, and everybody was adamant and knew we would be able to deliver it, and then and she is, she's a machine.
That was going to be my next question, Florian, was, as a cinematographer, how important is it to have an Oscar-winning master of the craft like Cate working in front of you? I mean, to have a performer operating at the top of her game like she was all the way. How does that impact you as a professional?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's an absolute privilege to see somebody indulge himself in that way. Obviously, it wasn't, you know, I think she totally immersed herself into this part. Then I also think, you know, it raises the stakes differently, because, you know, Todd is also very, very meticulous director. He says he's got an amazing visual sensitivity, and there's two people that basically, I would say, they pay cash. You know, they come in, they just, and his directorial style I find very brave. So it raises the bar. And you know, when you have sequences that you are going to shoot in a single shot, then all the important beats have to land visually, and I have to create an atmosphere that, you know, doesn't betray us and doesn't see us get caught. And I also have to do her justice, and that her performance comes across. You know, it's a privilege, but it was also some weight on my shoulders.
No question.
And you know, it seems to have worked out all right. You were nominated for a Critics' Choice Award and an Independent Spirit Award. You know, how does that recognition, what does that mean to you, and what would a potential Academy Award nomination mean to you?
Well, you know, I'm new to the game in the sense, I understand that there's a form of clock ticking, you know, that all these things come up at a certain timing now in this, what they call the awards season. One of my favorite quotes is, of course, of Hungarian composer Bela Bartók, who supposedly has said, you know, competition is for horses, not for artists. You know, so there is this bit in myself that tries to disconnect from it. But having said that, you know, I'm really proud of the film. I think it is a fine contemplation about our contemporary times, and you know, and it leaves a lot of room for thinking. It stimulates. It doesn't necessarily give you answers. It changes when you watch it multiple times, and I'm really proud that I get recognized for this piece of work, because it was so much about restraint and about not beautifying overly, and that people recognize this. You know, sometimes trying to make things look simple is actually really hard, and for people to acknowledge that, it means tremendous. It means, I mean, that overwhelmed me, you know, with winning the Golden Frog and in Poland, it's and the Critics' Choice and Independent, all the nomination. It means a hell lot to me. Absolutely, I'm
just my own observation, Florian. You know, I was really captivated in your photography by it seemed to be a choice to capture the remoteness of Tár as a human being, by showcasing kind of the remoteness of her environment. And you know, I just thought, and I'm thinking, you know, yes, that's the actress, yes, that's the director, but that, yes, that's also the cinematographer, and you did such a fine job with that.
Yeah. No, I thank you for that. It's, you know, it just a lot of things came together and worked out really well. And in that sense, you know, it was I just today I was asked about a couple of thoughts about my favorite shot, and I really have a hard time nominating a favorite shot. It's like,
these are all of your children.
Yeah, it's like, who's your favorite? Which is your favorite child? So, but I thought about, you know, that last tracking shot. That was really unique for many reasons. Once it had been scripted already, and I thought that the film does something there. The film kind of almost pulls a mirror around and points at us. You know, it's almost like contemplating what's our narrative about ourselves. And he does it with humor. And I thought that was really, really, I remember myself laughing when I read this. And it was the very last shot of the schedule. It was really the last shot that we did. And we had prepped it endlessly, and we had actually put the techno crane up in a parking lot with boxes to really make sure that the movement would fit the voiceover, and it was crazy. Then these grips put it in this theater overnight on platforms, which is crazy, a complicated thing to get this in there. we finally pull it off, and it's the last shot, and we all sit at the monitors. And actually, Cate came down to join us because she had been finished officially, and she was on the way out because she had some other requirements. She needed to fly out the very night. I remember she was sitting next to us in front of the monitors, and I realized it was the first time in all those months that I had seen her out of character, because it was, you know, it was something almost like we all three sat there, and it was like this last moment to enjoy this, you know. And then some of these extras, because the air was so thick and it was so hot, and they had been waiting in these costumes, they started kind of nodding away. So it took us a little while to actually shoot it. And when we shot it, it was such a moment of relief to have, you know, gone from all the restraint and the concentration, the focus of Berlin, to the cacophony and the heat of Southeast Asia. And we were all jubilant. And I remember I just yelled out, and Todd did as well, and we, you know, embraced each other. And for a reason that I still don't know, all the extras stood up and they applauded. So, you know, that was the way we ended it. And
wow.
then, you know, there you go. That's the story.
With that, I actually think we're out of time, Florian. Thanks so much for your time and wisdom, and for such a wonderful interview here today. Best of luck to you during awards season and in your career going forward, and take good care of yourself.
I will. Thanks for your interest. And yeah, I remain excited. Okay, take care, guys. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.